Mafia boss dreamt a stranger's face daily until he saw her in real life. For months, a powerful crime boss keeps seeing the same woman in his dreams, a woman whispering the same haunting warning. You have 7 days. But one morning, in a packed train station, he freezes because the woman from his dreams is suddenly standing right in front of him. And before he can speak, she collapses at his feet, begging to know why she dreams of him too. Their shared visions show something terrifying. Someone inside his own family is planning to kill him, and the closer they get to the truth, the more the dreams twist into something darker, something showing her tied to a chair, and him taking a bullet meant for her. Now enemies are hunting her, secrets are rising from the grave, and fate is pulling them together in a way neither can escape. So what's really hiding inside these dreams? A warning that will save them both, or a prophecy that will destroy them? Drop a comment below and share which part of the world you're tuning in from today. If you enjoy stories like this, don't forget to subscribe for more. The nightmare always ended the same way. Luca Moretti bolted upright in his king-sized bed, silk sheets tangled around his legs, his heart hammering against his ribs. Sweat dampened his forehead as the woman's haunting whisper echoed in his mind. You have 7 days. He ran a hand through his dark hair, trying to shake off the lingering unease. The digital clock on his nightstand read 4:30 in the morning. Sleep wouldn't return now. It never did after these dreams. The massive penthouse windows offered a view of the pre-dawn city, spread below like a carpet of twinkling lights. Luca stood, his bare feet silent on the marble floor as he made his way to his private bathroom. The cold water he splashed on his face did little to erase the image burned into his mind. Those eyes, that face half hidden in shadow, those lips forming words that felt more like a prophecy than a dream. By 5 o'clock, he was dressed in a perfectly tailored black suit, his armor against the world. In his office, he buried himself in work, reviewing cartel shipment manifest while the sky slowly brightened outside. The numbers blurred before his eyes, the lack of sleep catching up with him. A knock at the door preceded his consigliere, Marco. Boss, the morning reports are ready. Luca straightened, ensuring his posture revealed none of his exhaustion. Come in. Marco entered, laying out several folders on the mahogany desk. If he noticed the dark circles under Luca's eyes or the slight tremor in his usually steady hands, he was wise enough not to mention it. The meeting with the Colombians is set for 10 o'clock, Marco said. Security's been arranged at the usual location. Luca nodded, his mind already drifting to the woman in his dreams. 7 months of the same nightmare, growing more vivid each time. 7 months of searching for answers, finding nothing. The morning passed in a blur of meetings and phone calls. By 9:30, Luca was heading to the train station, preferring to travel inconspicuously when meeting with certain business associates. His security detail maintained a discreet distance as he stood on the platform, checking his watch. That's when he saw her. The world seemed to stop, sound fading to a dull roar in his ears. There, among the morning commuters, stood the woman from his dreams. She wore a simple gray dress, her dark hair falling past her shoulders, exactly as he'd seen it night after night. This couldn't be real. Before he could move, could even process what he was seeing, her face went pale. Her knees buckled, and she crumpled toward the concrete platform. Luca moved without thinking, crossing the distance in 3 long strides. He caught her before she hit the ground, her body light in his arms. The scent of her perfume, vanilla and something floral, struck him with its familiar sweetness. How could she smell exactly as she had in his dreams? His security team immediately formed a protective circle around them as he carried her to a more secluded corner of the platform. Her eyes fluttered open, widening with terror when they met his. No, she whispered, beginning to shake. No, this isn't possible. Who are you? Luca demanded, his voice rough with tension. She tried to push away from him, but her trembling arms had no strength. I don't know you, she insisted, but her voice wavered. I mean, I do, but I don't. You're in my dreams, every night. How are you real? Luca pulled out his phone, hitting the speed dial for his private physician. Dr. Romano, I need you at the safe house immediately. He ended the call without waiting for a response. The woman's trembling increased. Please, she begged. I don't understand what's happening. I dream about you every night, but I've never met you. You're always standing in shadows, watching me, and then everything goes dark. Her voice trailed off as another wave of dizziness seemed to hit her. Luca tightened his hold, studying her face. The same delicate features that had haunted his nights for months, now solid and real before him. The same full lips that had whispered warnings in his dreams. "Marco," he called to his consigliere. "The meeting needs to be rescheduled." "Already done, boss," Marco replied smoothly, phone in hand. Luca turned his attention back to the woman in his arms. "What's your name?" She swallowed hard, her eyes darting between his face and the security team surrounding them. "Emilia," she whispered. "Emilia Costa." The name sent an unexpected shock through him. He'd heard it before, somewhere, but couldn't place where or when. "Miss Costa," he said carefully. "I'm going to have my men escort us to my car. You need medical attention, and we have much to discuss." Fresh fear flickered across her face. "I can't go with you. I don't even know who you are." "Luca Moretti," he said, watching her reaction closely. No recognition crossed her features at his name, which was both surprising and concerning. Everyone in the city knew who he was, knew to fear the Moretti family. "Please," she tried again, her voice breaking. "I have work, I have appointments." "All of which can wait," Luca said firmly. "You've been dreaming of me for how long?" She hesitated before answering. 7 months. The timing couldn't be a coincidence. The same duration as his own dreams, the same mysterious connection that had plagued his nights. "Then you understand this is bigger than missed appointments," he said. "Something is happening here, something neither of us understands. But I intend to find out what it is, and why fate has brought you to my feet today." His security team had already cleared a path through the crowd. Emilia didn't resist as he carried her toward the station exit, though her body remained tense in his arms. He could feel her rapid heartbeat, smell the fear rolling off her in waves. The black SUV waited exactly where it should, engine running. Marco opened the door as Luca approached with his burden. He settled into the back seat, with Emilia still cradled against his chest, unwilling to release her lest she try to flee. As the vehicle pulled away from the curb, Luca studied the woman who had haunted his dreams. In daylight, she was even more striking than in the shadowy visions that had tormented him. Her skin was pale, almost translucent, with a spray of freckles across her nose that he hadn't been able to see in his dreams. Dark lashes, framed eyes, the color of storm clouds, currently wide with fear and confusion. "I won't hurt you," he said quietly, though they both knew it was the kind of promise that meant little coming from a man like him. "Why do I dream about you?" she asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "What does it mean?" Luca wished he had an answer for her. The dreams had started the night after his 39th birthday, jolting him awake with their intensity. Each time, the same scene. The woman, Emilia, emerging from shadows, her warning about 7 days, and then darkness closing in. He'd assumed they were stress-induced nightmares, his subconscious processing the weight of running the family business. But now, "I don't know," he admitted. "But I intend to find out." "You said your dreams are different from mine?" She nodded, still trembling slightly. "You're always watching me from the shadows. I can feel your presence, but I can never reach you. And then everything goes black, and I hear screaming." Her voice cracked on the last word. Luca found himself tightening his hold instinctively, wanting to shelter her from whatever horrors she saw in those dreams. It was an unfamiliar impulse for a man who typically caused nightmares, rather than soothed them. The SUV wound through city streets toward one of his secure properties, where Dr. Romano would be waiting. Emilia had stopped struggling, either accepting her situation or too exhausted to fight it. Her head rested against his shoulder, her breathing gradually steadying. "What are you going to do with me?" she asked finally. "First, you're going to be examined by my doctor," Luca said. "Then we're going to figure out what connection exists between us and why we've been sharing these dreams. Until we have answers, you'll remain under my protection." "Protection?" She lifted her head to look at him. "Or imprisonment?" Luca met her gaze steadily. "That depends entirely on your cooperation. I've spent months searching for answers about these dreams. Now that I've found you, I'm not letting you disappear." The SUV turned onto a private drive, approaching a gated estate on the outskirts of the city. Emilia tensed again as they passed through security checkpoints, reality seemingly catching up with her. "I'm nobody," she whispered. "I'm just an art teacher. I don't understand any of this." But Luca knew better. Nothing in his world happened by chance, and the timing of their dreams, starting on the exact same night, couldn't be coincidence. Someone or something had connected them for a reason, and with her warning of 7 days, still echoing in his mind. He intended to discover why before time ran out. The SUV came to a stop in front of a modernist mansion of glass and steel. Dr. Romano's car was already parked in the circular drive. Luca's security team moved with practiced efficiency, securing the perimeter before Marco opened the car door. "Welcome to your temporary home, Miss Costa," Luca said softly. "Let's find out why fate has brought us together." Consciousness returned to Amelia slowly, like wading through thick fog. Her eyelids felt heavy, and the sterile scent of antiseptic filled her nostrils. The rhythmic beeping of medical equipment pulled her fully awake, and she found herself lying in what appeared to be a private medical suite. Sunlight streamed through floor-to-ceiling windows, illuminating modern medical equipment and luxurious furnishings that seemed more suited to a 5-star hotel than a hospital. "Welcome back." The deep voice drew her attention to where Luca Moretti sat in a leather armchair beside her bed. His suit jacket was draped over the chair's back, his shirt sleeves rolled to reveal muscled forearms crossed over his chest. Despite his casual pose, tension radiated from his rigid shoulders. Amelia tried to push herself up, but dizziness forced her back against the pillows. "What happened?" "You fainted at the train station." Luca's dark eyes studied her face. "Dr. Romano says it was likely caused by exhaustion and stress. When was the last time you had a full night's sleep?" She almost laughed at the question. Sleep had become her enemy since the dreams began. "I can't remember." "Because of the dreams?" His tone was deceptively gentle, but she caught the predatory gleam in his eyes. "Tell me about them. Every detail." It wasn't a request. Amelia's fingers twisted in the crisp white sheets as she weighed her options. This man was dangerous. Everything about him screamed power and controlled violence. But he already knew about the dreams, and maybe he had answers she desperately needed. "They started 3 months ago," she began, always the same. "I'm standing in what looks like an old warehouse. The air smells like motor oil and rust. You're there, but you don't see what's coming. A man with a gun." Her voice cracked. "He's wearing a ring with some kind of crest. He shoots you in the back, and I can't stop it. I wake up screaming every time." Luca's expression didn't change, but his knuckles whitened where they gripped the chair's armrests. "What kind of crest? A lion holding a sword." The image was burned into her memory. "Surrounded by roses." "The Moretti family crest." His voice had dropped to a dangerous whisper. "How do you know about that?" "I don't." Panic clawed at her throat. "I've never heard of the Moretti family before today. I'm an elementary school counselor. The most exciting thing in my life is helping kids work through their math anxiety. I don't know anything about the Mafia or family crests or..." "Then explain how you've been dreaming about my death with such specific detail." Luca rose from the chair in one fluid motion, looming over her bed. "The warehouse you described, concrete floors stained with oil, metal support beams painted industrial green, the smell of rust and gasoline. I dream about it too, every night for the past 3 months." Amelia's heart thundered against her ribs. "That's impossible." "Is it?" He braced his hands on either side of her pillow, caging her in. "Tell me what happens next in your dream, after the shot." She swallowed hard. "Everything goes dark. I hear someone laughing. Then there's the sound of footsteps walking away and dripping water. Like blood falling on concrete." Luca straightened abruptly, pacing the length of the room. "Exactly the same. Every detail." He turned back to her. "You understand why I can't let you leave?" "You can't keep me here." Amelia pushed herself up despite the lingering dizziness. "I have a job. Students who depend on me. Your school has already been notified that you're taking a medical leave." His tone brooked no argument. "Dr. Romano will monitor you overnight to ensure there are no lingering effects from your collapse. Tomorrow, we'll discuss more permanent arrangements." "Permanent?" The word felt like ice in her veins. "This is kidnapping. This is protection." Luca's expression softened fractionally. "Whatever connection exists between us has made you a target. The Moretti family has enemies who would love to exploit someone with apparent insight into my future. Until I understand what's happening, you stay where I can keep you safe." Before Amelia could argue further, a nurse entered with dinner and fresh medical supplies. Luca stepped back, allowing the woman to check Amelia's vital signs and set up the meal tray. The sun had begun to set, painting the room in shades of amber and rose. "Try to rest," Luca said, retrieving his jacket. "I have business to attend to, but security will be posted outside. Don't attempt to leave." The threat in those last words was clear. Amelia watched him stride toward the door, her mind racing for some way out of this nightmare. Just as his hand touched the doorknob, she called out, "Wait!" He paused, turning back with one eyebrow raised. "Could you—" She hesitated, hating how vulnerable she felt. "Could you help me reach that water glass? I'm still a little shaky." Luca returned to her bedside, reaching for the glass on the nearby table. As his fingers brushed hers in the handoff, the world tilted violently. The vision slammed into them both like a physical blow. They were in the warehouse, the same one from their dreams, but crystal clear now. Luca stood examining shipping manifests under harsh fluorescent lights. Behind him, a door opened silently. A figure in black raised a gun, light glinting off the Moretti ring on his trigger finger. The shot echoed like thunder. They snapped back to reality with twin gasps. The water glass shattered on the floor, but neither of them noticed. Emilia's fingers were still locked around Luca's wrist, both of them pale and shaking. "You saw it too," she whispered. "Yes." His voice was rough. "That's never happened before. It felt so real." Emilia released his wrist, wrapping her arms around herself. "Like we were actually there." Luca stared at her with new intensity. "This is no coincidence. Someone or something wants me to see my own murder, and they're using you to show me. The question is why? I don't want any part of this." Tears pricked at Emilia's eyes. "I just want my life back." "That's not an option anymore." Luca pressed a button on his phone, barking orders in rapid Italian. Within minutes, his security team arrived. "Pack up the medical equipment. She's coming to the penthouse tonight." "Mr. Moretti, please." "This isn't a discussion." He turned to Dr. Romano, who had entered with the security team. "Can she be moved safely?" The doctor nodded. "Her vitals are stable. I'll send detailed care instructions and make house calls as needed." Everything happened with military precision after that. Medical equipment was disconnected, Emilia's few belongings were gathered, and she found herself firmly escorted to another black SUV. As they drove through the gathering darkness, city lights began to twinkle like stars fallen to earth. The convoy of vehicles wound through exclusive neighborhoods before pulling up to a sleek high-rise that screamed money and power. Emilia stared up at the gleaming tower, her heart sinking. This wasn't protection, it was a gilded cage, and she had no idea how long Luca Moretti intended to keep her in it. The security team surrounded them as they entered the private elevator. Luca stood beside her, his presence both threatening and oddly reassuring after their shared vision. As they ascended toward his penthouse, Emilia couldn't shake the feeling that her life had irrevocably changed. The normal world of lesson plans and student counseling sessions seemed like a distant dream now, replaced by a reality of prophetic visions and mafia bosses. The elevator doors opened directly into a stunning penthouse foyer. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of the glittering cityscape, but Emilia barely noticed the luxurious surroundings. All she could think about was the warehouse, the gun, and the 7 days that seemed to be counting down to Luca Moretti's death, whether she wanted to be involved or not. The elevator doors opened to reveal a stunning penthouse that took Emilia's breath away. Polished marble floors stretched beneath her feet, while floor-to-ceiling windows offered a glittering panorama of the city below. Everything spoke of wealth and power, from the minimalist Italian furniture to the abstract art pieces that probably cost more than her yearly salary. Luca guided her into the main living area with a firm hand on her lower back. "Antonio, Marco," he called out to two men in dark suits. "This is Emilia Sans. She's under our protection. No one enters or leaves without my direct approval." The men nodded, their expressions carefully neutral. Emilia noticed how they assessed her, not as a threat, but as an asset to be guarded. The thought made her skin crawl. "Your room is this way," Luca said, leading her down a hallway lined with more artwork. "There are clothes in the closet. The bathroom is fully stocked." He pushed open a door to reveal a luxurious bedroom suite, decorated in cream and gold. "You had clothes waiting?" Emilia asked, suspicion creeping into her voice. "I have resources." His tone left no room for further questions. "You'll meet the rest of the security team in the morning. For now, try to sleep." Before she could protest, he closed the door. The soft click of a lock engaging made her stomach twist. Emilia pressed her ear to the door and heard footsteps stationed outside. A guard. Of course. The bed was obscenely comfortable, but sleep proved elusive. She tossed and turned, haunted by visions of the warehouse, the gun, the ring. When exhaustion finally claimed her, her dreams were filled with shadows and whispered warnings. Dawn found her wide awake, watching pink light creep across the city skyline. The guard outside her door had changed shifts twice during the night. Now was her chance. Amelia eased the door open, finding the hallway mercifully empty. She padded silently toward the elevator, her heart thundering in her chest. The security panel required a code, but she had watched Luca enter it the night before. 4893. The elevator descended smoothly, each floor making her hopes surge higher. When the doors opened to the lobby, she nearly cried with relief. Freedom was just steps away. She made it halfway to the glass doors before a familiar voice froze her in place. Going somewhere? Luca emerged from a side corridor, his expression thunderous. 2 guards materialized beside him, blocking her escape route. I need to go home, Amelia said, hating how her voice shook. You can't keep me prisoner here. Prisoner? Luca crossed the lobby in long strides. I'm trying to keep you alive. The people who want me dead won't hesitate to use you against me. That's not my problem. I didn't ask for these visions. No, but they chose you anyway. He gripped her arm, steering her back toward the elevator. And until we understand why, you're staying where I can protect you. The ride back up was tense with fury, his at her escape attempt, hers at his high-handed control. When they reached the penthouse, Luca dismissed the guards with a sharp gesture. You don't understand the danger you're in, he said, pacing the living room. These aren't ordinary criminals. They're calculated, patient, willing to exploit any weakness. And I'm a weakness, Amelia challenged. You're the only person who can see how they plan to kill me. His words hung in the air between them. That makes you either incredibly valuable or incredibly dangerous. Either way, you need protection. The truth of his words slowly sank in. If someone discovered her ability to foresee Luca's death, she would become a target, either to be eliminated or controlled. Come with me, Luca said abruptly. There's something you need to see. He led her to a hidden door behind his office bookshelf, revealing a state-of-the-art surveillance room. Multiple screens displayed camera feeds from throughout the building and surrounding streets. A heavy safe dominated one wall. Luca entered a complex combination, opening the safe to reveal velvet-lined trays. These are the Moretti family rings, each one unique, passed down through generations. He laid them out carefully. Look closely. Tell me if any match what you saw in the vision. Amelia examined each ring, remembering the distinctive flash of metal in their shared vision. No, she said finally. None of these are the same. The one I saw had a different crest, more angular, with a wolf's head. Luca's expression darkened. That's impossible. Every legitimate Moretti ring is in this safe. Unless what? Unless there's another ring we don't know about, a hidden heir or a forged copy. He replaced the rings carefully. It means the threat is closer than I thought. Someone with intimate knowledge of the family. The implications hung heavy in the air as they made their way to the penthouse balcony. The setting sun painted the sky in deep purples and oranges, but Amelia barely noticed the beauty. The visions are getting stronger, she admitted, gripping the balcony railing. More detailed. When we touched in the clinic, I've never experienced anything that intense before. They're trying to tell us something, Luca said, his voice unusually soft. He stood close enough that she could feel his warmth, but didn't touch her. Whatever force is showing us these glimpses of the future, it chose you for a reason. I don't want this responsibility, Amelia whispered. I can't be responsible for someone's life or death again. Something in her tone made Luca turn to face her fully. Again? She shook her head, old pain surfacing. It doesn't matter now. You're wrong. His hand covered hers on the railing, gentle despite his strength. Everything about you matters now. Whatever's coming, whatever fate has planned, I promise you won't face it alone. How can you promise that? We saw you die. What we saw was a warning, not a certainty. His eyes held hers intently. I protect what's mine, Amelia, and right now that includes you, whether you like it or not. The possessive note in his voice should have frightened her. Instead, it sent an unexpected shiver down her spine. As the last rays of sunlight faded from the sky, Amelia realized she was no longer sure if she was more afraid of the danger surrounding them or the way Luca made her feel safe despite everything. They stood in companionable silence, watching the city lights bloom in the gathering darkness. The weight of their shared destiny settled around them like a cloak, heavy with possibility and danger in equal measure. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new attempts to unravel the mystery of the ring and the identity of the traitor. But for now, in this moment, Amelia allowed herself to believe Luca's promise of protection. Below them, the city hummed with life, unaware of the prophecy unfolding in the penthouse above. 7 days remained until the vision was meant to come true. 7 days to change fate, find a traitor, and perhaps discover why destiny had bound them together through dreams of death and whispered warnings. Dawn painted the city skyline in shades of steel gray as Luca's motorcade pulled away from the penthouse. Emilia sat beside him in the armored SUV, watching concrete towers give way to industrial warehouses. 4 identical black vehicles surrounded them, 2 ahead, 2 behind, filled with Luca's most trusted men. The warehouse complex ahead belongs to the Moretti family, Luca explained, his voice low and controlled. If someone's planning to move against me there, we'll find evidence. Emilia nodded, trying to ignore how his presence filled the confined space of the vehicle. He wore an impeccably tailored black suit that emphasized his broad shoulders, but the bulge of a shoulder holster beneath his jacket served as a stark reminder of who he really was. The convoy passed through multiple security checkpoints before stopping at a vast concrete structure. Guards materialized from seemingly nowhere, forming a protective circle as Luca helped Emilia from the car. "Stay close," he ordered, one hand settling at the small of her back. "These corridors match what we saw in the vision." The warehouse interior was a maze of narrow passageways between towering storage units. Their footsteps echoed off metal walls as they walked, accompanied by the constant shadow of armed guards. Emilia tried to focus on searching for anything familiar from their shared vision, but the clinical fluorescent lighting and identical corridors began to blur together. Suddenly, the world tilted sideways. Emilia's knees buckled as a flash of precognition slammed into her. Vivid crimson spreading across concrete, the metallic scent of blood overwhelming her senses. She grabbed the nearest railing, knuckles white as she fought to stay upright. "Emilia!" Luca's arm wrapped around her waist, supporting her weight. "What did you see?" She drew a shaky breath, the vision already fading like smoke. Blood. So much blood on this floor. It felt immediate. Recent or soon, I can't tell. His face hardened into a mask of controlled fury. "Marco," he barked to his head of security. "I want every employee roster for the past month. Access logs for all restricted areas, security footage, everything." "Yes, boss." Marco disappeared down a side corridor, already barking orders into his radio. For the next several hours, Emilia watched Luca methodically tear the warehouse operations apart. He interrogated shift supervisors, reviewed security protocols, and inspected every potential vantage point where an assassin might wait. His men scrambled to fulfill his demands, their fear palpable whenever he entered a room. "Show me the master key logs," he demanded from the nervous warehouse manager who fumbled with his tablet. Of course, Mr. Moretti. Everything's in order, I swear." "We'll see." Luca's tone could have frozen fire. "If I find one unauthorized access, one unexplained deviation." He left the threat unfinished, but the manager's face went pale. Emilia observed how effortlessly Luca switched between sophisticated businessman and ruthless mafia boss. Both personas seemed equally natural, equally dangerous. By late afternoon, they had covered every inch of the warehouse. Luca's investigation revealed nothing obviously suspicious, but his tension hadn't eased. If anything, the lack of clear evidence seemed to frustrate him more. "Time to go," he finally announced, guiding Emilia toward the exit. "We'll analyze everything we've collected back at the penthouse." They were halfway across the loading bay when movement flickered in Emilia's peripheral vision. Before she could process what was happening, a dark figure lunged from behind a stack of pallets, steel glinting in the industrial lighting. "Kill the seer!" the masked attacker screamed, blade slashing toward her throat. Time seemed to slow. Emilia felt Luca shove her behind him, his movement liquid and practiced. In the same motion, he drew his weapon and fired twice. The attacker's knife clattered to the ground as he crumpled, blood blooming across his chest. Emilia's ears rang from the gunshots. She stared at the growing pool of red beneath the masked man, her earlier vision suddenly horribly clear. This was the blood she'd seen. Luca's men swarmed the area, securing the perimeter, while their boss knelt to check the attacker's pulse. Finding none, he yanked off the mask, revealing a young face Emilia didn't recognize. "Search him," Luca ordered, his voice deadly calm. "I want to know everything. Who he is, who he works for, how he got in here." Emilia couldn't look away from the body. The man had targeted her specifically, called her the seer. Someone knew about her abilities. Someone wanted her dead. Her legs gave out. Before she could fall, Luca caught her, lifting her easily into his arms. She didn't resist as he carried her to the waiting SUV. too shocked to do more than press her face against his chest. "Get us out of here," he snapped to the driver as he settled her across his lap in the back seat. His arms remained locked around her, protective and possessive. "They know about me," Amelia whispered, trembling. "About the visions." "They won't touch you." Luca's voice was pure steel, his jaw clenched so tight she could see the muscle jumping. "I swear to God, Amelia, no one will ever get that close to you again." She looked up at him, seeing the barely contained rage in his eyes. This wasn't just about protecting an asset anymore. Something had shifted between them, something neither of them was ready to name. The convoy peeled away from the warehouse, sirens silent but lights flashing as they cut through traffic. Amelia remained in Luca's embrace, his heartbeat steady against her cheek while her own pulse gradually slowed. The adrenaline crash left her exhausted, but sleep felt impossible. "How did he know?" she asked finally. "About my abilities." Someone's talking. Luca's fingers traced absent patterns on her arm as he thought. Someone close. The attack was too well timed, too specific. They knew exactly where we'd be. "A traitor in your organization?" "Possibly." His hold tightened fractionally. "But they failed, and now we know they're desperate enough to attempt a public attack." Amelia shivered, remembering the knife's arc toward her throat. "Why call me the seer? Why not just kill me?" "They wanted us to know why you were targeted. It's a message." Luca's expression darkened. "They're telling us they know everything, about your visions, about what you mean to my future." The implications settled heavily between them. Amelia's gift made her both invaluable and vulnerable. She was the key to preventing Luca's assassination, but that same ability had painted a target on her back. As the SUV wound through city streets toward the penthouse, Amelia realized her world had irreversibly changed. She'd seen death up close today, watched Luca take a life to protect her. There was no going back to her normal life now, no pretending this was temporary. She was bound to Luca Moretti by fate, by danger, and increasingly by something that felt dangerously like trust. Whether she wanted it or not, she was part of his world now. The only question was whether they could survive what was coming. Luca's phone buzzed with updates from his men at the warehouse, but he ignored it, focused entirely on the woman in his arms. Let his captains handle the cleanup. Right now, nothing mattered except getting Amelia somewhere safe and finding who had dared to threaten what was his. The city blurred past the bulletproof windows, but Amelia barely noticed. She was too aware of Luca's strength surrounding her, the lethal grace with which he'd eliminated the threat, the fierce protectiveness in his every touch. She should have been terrified of him after witnessing his capacity for violence. Instead, she felt safer than she had in days. The penthouse felt like a gilded cage as Amelia paced the massive living room. Night had fallen over the city, casting long shadows across the marble floors. Her nerves were still raw from the attack, but something else gnawed at her, the life she was being forced to leave behind. "I have 28 students who depend on me," she said, turning to face Luca. He stood by his desk, jacket discarded, shirt sleeves rolled up to reveal muscled forearms. "I can't just disappear." "Your school has already been notified that you're taking emergency leave." His voice was measured, controlled. "I've arranged everything." Anger flared in her chest. "You had no right." "I had every right." Luca crossed the room in 3 long strides. "Someone tried to kill you today, Amelia. They knew exactly who you are, what you can do. This isn't a game anymore." "It was never a game to me." She wrapped her arms around herself, fighting back tears of frustration. "I didn't ask for any of this. The dreams, the visions, being dragged into your world. And yet here we are." His dark eyes held hers. "Connected. Whether we like it or not, someone is moving against me, using you to do it. Until I know who and why, you stay where I can protect you." "Protect me?" Amelia laughed bitterly. "You mean keep me prisoner?" Something dangerous flickered across his face. "If that's what it takes to keep you alive." The raw honesty in his voice stopped her next argument cold. She saw again how quickly he'd moved to save her, the deadly precision with which he'd eliminated the threat. This man would kill to protect her, had already killed to protect her. Exhaustion suddenly hit her like a wave. I need some space." Luca nodded once, stepping back. "The guest suite is yours. Marco is outside if you need anything." Amelia retreated down the hallway past the armed guard who barely acknowledged her presence. The suite was larger than her entire apartment, decorated in creams and silvers that should have been soothing. Instead, the luxury felt suffocating. She had just sat on the edge of the bed, when a soft knock preceded Luca entering. I wanted to... Check! Their eyes met across the room, and the world tilted sideways. The vision slammed into them both with brutal force. A dining room, elegant place settings gleaming under crystal chandeliers. But the white tablecloth was soaked with crimson, spreading outward like a blooming flower. A man's voice, rough with malice. It ends tonight. Emilia's knees buckled. Luca caught her before she hit the ground, gathering her against his chest as they both gasped for air. The phantom scent of copper lingered in her nose, making her stomach roll. Easy, Luca murmured, one hand cupping the back of her head. Just breathe. Stay with me. She clutched at his shirt, trying to ground herself in the present. His heartbeat thundered under her palm, as erratic as her own. These shared visions were getting stronger, more visceral with each occurrence. Living room, he said quietly. Can you walk? Emilia nodded, but her legs were shaking too badly. Without comment, Luca lifted her into his arms and carried her back to the main room. He settled them both on the leather sofa, keeping her close as if afraid she might shatter. Count with me, he instructed, his voice gentler than she'd ever heard it. In for 4, hold for 4, out for 4, again. She followed his lead, focusing on the steady rise and fall of his chest. Gradually, her breathing steadied, though tremors still ran through her body. This vision had felt different, more immediate, more threatening. Someone's manipulating this, Luca said finally, his tone hardening. These aren't natural predictions anymore. They're too specific, too coordinated. How is that possible? Emilia asked, her voice hoarse. I don't know. His fingers traced absent patterns on her shoulder. But the timing is too perfect. The warehouse attack. Now this vision of what looks like an assassination attempt at a dinner party. Someone's orchestrating events to match what we see. Or making us see what they want us to see. The realization chilled her. Using our connection against us. Luca's expression darkened. Which means someone knew about your abilities before we ever met. They've been watching, waiting for the right moment. Emilia closed her eyes, finally accepting what she'd been fighting since that first moment on the train platform. I can't walk away from this, can I? No. His answer was simple, final. Whatever's coming, we face it together. They sat in silence for a long moment, watching the city lights twinkle beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows. Each glittering point represented normal lives being lived, people going home to their families, enjoying dinner with friends, falling in love without prophecies or death threats hanging over their heads. That normal life felt impossibly far away now. Emilia was caught in Luca's world of shadows and secrets, bound to him by forces neither of them fully understood. The strange thing was, she no longer felt like fighting it. His arm remained around her, shoulders strong and steady, the same hands that had dealt death. Hours ago now offered comfort with surprising tenderness. She should have been terrified of his capacity for violence, but instead she felt protected. Safe, despite the growing threats around them. Tell me about the dinner vision, he said eventually. Every detail you remember. Emilia forced herself to recall the scene. Crystal chandeliers, expensive place settings. The tablecloth was white until the blood. Multiple chairs, like it was set for a formal dinner party. Did you recognize the room? No, but it felt important, official, she shivered. The voice was male, older maybe. I couldn't see his face. Luca's jaw tightened. It matches the layout of my family's main dining room at the estate. We have a mandatory dinner there every month with the senior family members. When? 3 days from now. The implications settled heavily between them. Someone was planning to strike at the heart of Luca's organization, using an event where his guard might be lower among family. I won't let it happen, he said, as if reading her thoughts. Whatever they're planning, whatever game they're playing with our minds, I'll stop it. Emilia turned to study his profile, sharp and dangerous in the city's glow. We'll stop it, she corrected softly. I'm already involved, Luca. If someone's using my gift against you, I want to help end this. Something shifted in his expression. Surprise, perhaps, or respect. He reached up to brush a strand of hair from her face, his touch lingering longer than necessary. The city continued its endless dance of lights beyond the windows, oblivious to the forces aligning against them. But in that moment, watching darkness gather at the edges of their shared vision, Emilia knew with absolute certainty that their lives had become inextricably intertwined. Whatever threat had been set in motion, they would face it together. The Mafia boss, and his unwitting seer, bound by prophecy and something deeper neither dared name. Morning light streamed through the penthouse windows, casting long shadows across the marble floors. Emilia sat at the massive dining table, watching as Luca's private chef arranged an elaborate breakfast spread before them. Fresh croissants, perfectly ripened fruit, and steaming coffee filled the air with enticing aromas. Luca hadn't spoken much since they'd woken, his expression contemplative as he studied her over the rim of his coffee cup. The events of last night, the shared vision, their closeness on the sofa, had shifted something between them. "I have a theory," he finally said, breaking the silence, "about your visions and why they started now." Emilia picked at a croissant, waiting for him to continue. In the morning light, his features seemed softer, though no less dangerous. "There's someone I haven't told you about. Someone who, if alive, would have every reason to want me dead." He paused, his knuckles whitening around his cup. "My older brother, Matteo. I didn't know you had a brother." "Few do. He's been presumed dead for 15 years. Luca's voice hardened. "Our father was cruel, especially to Matteo, his heir. One night, after a particularly brutal beating, Matteo disappeared. We found blood, signs of violence. Everyone assumed he'd finally been killed." Emilia felt a chill despite the warm sunlight. "But you think he's alive? The timing of your visions, the intimate knowledge of our family's ways, it fits. Matteo would know exactly how to strike at the heart of our organization." His eyes met hers. "And he had abilities, like yours. He could sometimes see things before they happened." The implications settled heavily between them. "You think he's behind this? Manipulating our connection somehow?" "It's possible. If anyone could orchestrate something this elaborate, it would be him." Luca stood abruptly. "We need to go. I have a meeting with my captains at the compound, and I want you close." An hour later, they pulled up to an imposing estate on the outskirts of the city. Ancient stone walls rose before them, topped with modern security systems. Guards posted at regular intervals tracked their movement with alert eyes and ready weapons. Inside, Emilia was struck by the contrast, priceless artwork adorning walls that had likely witnessed countless acts of violence. Luca led her to his private office, where a dozen men in expensive suits waited. "Stay close," he murmured, before his entire demeanor changed. Gone was the man who'd shared breakfast with her. In his place stood the Mafia boss, radiating cold authority. The meeting started routinely enough: territory reports, profit margins, security concerns. Then Luca's voice cut through the discussions like a blade. "Stefano," he said quietly, addressing a lieutenant near the end of the table, "would you care to explain the discrepancies in the dock shipments?" The room temperature seemed to drop. Emilia watched the color drain from Stefano's face as Luca produced a stack of documents. There must be some mistake," Stefano stammered. "The only mistake," Luca said, his tone deadly calm, "was thinking you could accept bribes from the Colombians without consequences." What happened next unfolded with terrifying efficiency. 2 guards materialized behind Stefano. The other captains remained perfectly still, faces impassive, as their colleague was forced to his knees. "Please," Stefano begged. "I can explain." "Then explain." Luca's voice could have frozen hell itself. "Explain why you betrayed my trust. Explain why I shouldn't have your family's name struck from our books forever." Emilia couldn't look away as Stefano broke down, confessing everything: the money, the altered manifests, the secret meetings. She saw the precise moment when the man realized his life was forfeit. Luca's sentence was swift and final. Guards dragged Stefano away, his sobs echoing, down the corridor. The remaining captains were dismissed, filing out with careful deference to their boss. When they were alone, Emilia released a shaky breath. "Is he going to die?" "Yes." Luca didn't sugarcoat it. "Betrayal cannot go unpunished in my world." "Your world," she echoed hollowly. "One I'm trapped in now." Something flickered in his expression. Regret, perhaps. He crossed to where she sat, kneeling before her chair. "Listen to me. Once this threat is eliminated, once you're safe, your fate will be your own choice. I give you my word." The word of a man who just ordered an execution? The word of a man who protects what's his. His eyes held hers intently. "For now, that includes you." The rest of the day passed in a blur of meetings and security briefings. As evening fell, they returned to the penthouse, both exhausted from the tension. Emilia headed for the kitchen to get water, not paying attention as Luca reached for the same glass. Their hands brushed, and the vision slammed into them both. Heat. Passion. Their bodies pressed together against a wall, his mouth claiming hers with desperate hunger. Her fingers tangled in his hair as she gasped his name, arching into his touch. They jerked apart, breathing heavily. The vision had felt different from the others, more intimate, more immediate. Desire crackled in the air between them. Emilia's voice shook. I should get some sleep. Luca nodded stiffly, his control clearly strained. Good night, Emilia. She fled to her room, heart racing, the vision replayed in her mind. Not a warning this time, but a possibility. A destiny? Or something more dangerous? In his living room, Luca stood at the windows, staring out at the glittering cityscape. The taste of her lingered on his lips, though they hadn't actually kissed. Yet. The vision had felt inevitable, like gravity pulling them together, but he couldn't shake the feeling that this attraction, this connection, might be exactly what his enemies wanted. Was fate drawing them together, or was someone orchestrating their downfall through their growing attachment? The city offered no answers, only the endless dance of lights in the darkness. Somewhere out there, unseen forces were aligning against them, and Luca couldn't be certain if his desire to protect Emilia would be their salvation or their destruction. The night deepened around him as he maintained his vigil, torn between the pull of prophecy and the weight of his responsibilities. Dawn would bring new challenges, new dangers. But for now, he stood guard while she slept, wondering if anyone truly had the power to escape their destiny. By noon the next day, dark clouds gathered over the city, matching Luca's grim mood as he guided Emilia down a narrow stairwell. The underground safe house lay beneath an innocuous office building, its entrance concealed behind a false wall in the parking garage. Watch your step, he warned, his hand steady at her lower back. The metal stairs creaked under their feet. The space below was surprisingly well appointed, despite its utilitarian purpose. A small living area held a sofa and chairs, while a kitchenette occupied one corner. The lighting was dim, casting long shadows across the concrete walls. This is where we'll wait, Luca said, checking his phone. My men are monitoring the warehouse. If anything happens, we'll know immediately. Emilia hugged herself, fighting a shiver. You really think today's the day? The vision showed evening light through the warehouse windows. And something feels different. He paced the length of the room, tension radiating from his shoulders. Hours crept by. Emilia tried to read one of the books from the shelves but couldn't focus. Luca alternated between checking his phone and staring at nothing, lost in thought. By late afternoon, the confined space had them both on edge. Emilia got up to make coffee, needing something to do with her hands. You're certain it's your brother behind this? Luca's jaw tightened. Matteo died 15 years ago, but his ghost has haunted everything I've built. Tell me about him, Emilia said softly, setting a cup before him. Luca stared into the coffee as if it held answers. He was the heir, the firstborn, our father. He paused, struggling with the words. Giuseppe Moretti was a monster wearing an expensive suit. He pitted us against each other from childhood, always testing, always pushing to see who was stronger. Emilia sat beside him, close enough to feel his warmth. What happened? There was a ritual when we turned 18, a test of loyalty and strength. His voice turned hollow. Matteo went first. Father locked him in the wine cellar and set it on fire. Oh God, Emilia whispered. I tried to save him. The screams. Luca's hands clenched. By the time I broke down the door, the flames were everywhere. They never found his body in the ashes. And your father? Dead 2 days later. They called it a heart attack. Luca's smile was razor sharp. I made sure it looked natural. Emilia reached for his hand, her touch gentle. You were just a boy, forced to become a monster to survive. I became what I had to become. He turned to face her, their faces close in the dim light. But lately I feel Matteo's presence, the dreams, the threats. It's as if he's orchestrating everything from beyond the grave. Or perhaps he survived, Emilia suggested quietly. Perhaps he's been waiting all these years to strike. Luca's eyes darkened at the possibility. His gaze dropped to her lips, the air between them charging with electricity. Emilia's heart thundered as he leaned closer, his breath warm against her cheek. The moment shattered as his phone buzzed violently. Luca jerked back, checking the screen. His expression hardened. Armed men just entered the warehouse. It's happening. He was already moving, pulling Amelia to her feet. We need to go. Now. They raced up the stairs and through the garage to where his car waited. Luca drove like a man possessed, weaving through traffic as the sun began to set. Amelia gripped her seat, remembering their shared vision of blood and betrayal. The warehouse district loomed ahead, a maze of identical buildings in the gathering dusk. Gunfire echoed as they approached, sharp cracks that made Amelia flinch. Stay in the car, Luca ordered, checking his weapon. If I'm not back in 10 minutes, my driver will take you to a secondary location. Luca, wait! But he was already gone, disappearing into the shadows between buildings. More shots rang out, closer now. Amelia counted the minutes, her heart in her throat. 8 minutes. 9. At 10, she reached for the door handle, unable to stay still any longer. The warehouse door burst open. 2 figures struggled in the doorway, Luca and a masked attacker. They grappled for control of a gun, their movements desperate and violent. Amelia watched in horror as the scene from their vision began to unfold. The assassin broke free, raising his weapon toward Luca's back. The shot cracked across the evening air. But it wasn't Luca who fell. The would-be killer crumpled, blood blooming across his chest. Luca stood over him, his own gun still smoking. With swift efficiency, he knelt and stripped off the man's mask, then checked his hands. No ring. No Moretti heirloom that would identify him as family. Luca's men swarmed the area, securing the perimeter as their boss strode back to the car. He slid behind the wheel, his knuckles white on the steering wheel. It wasn't him, Amelia said quietly. No. Luca's voice was tight with frustration. Another pawn in whatever game he's playing. The drive back to the penthouse passed in tense silence. Amelia's mind raced with possibilities. If the vision had come true but the details were wrong, what else might they have misinterpreted? In the elevator, Luca finally spoke. You shouldn't have gotten out of the car. I couldn't just sit there while... While what? While I handled the threat? His control slipped, revealing the fear beneath his anger. Do you have any idea what could have happened if... If what? If the vision came true? Amelia challenged. We're both still breathing, Luca. Maybe that's the point. Maybe we're meant to face these things together. The elevator doors opened to his penthouse. City lights sparkled beyond the windows, beautiful and oblivious to the violence they'd just witnessed. Luca ordered his security team to sweep the premises, then turned to Amelia. Get some rest, he said, his voice gentler now. We're alive, but this isn't over. Someone orchestrated tonight's attack, and they'll try again. Amelia nodded, exhaustion suddenly hitting her. But as she headed toward her room, she paused. Luca, thank you for protecting me. He watched her go, his expression unreadable in the half-light. They had survived the vision's warning, but both knew this was just the beginning. Somewhere out there, hidden in the shadows, the true threat was still waiting to strike. The night settled around the penthouse like a shroud, while in separate rooms, both Luca and Amelia lay awake, replaying the day's events. The almost kiss in the safe house, the violence at the warehouse, the growing certainty that their fates were somehow intertwined. Neither could shake the feeling that they had only scratched the surface of the conspiracy surrounding them. The vision had come true, but like a puzzle with missing pieces, the full picture remained frustratingly unclear. Tomorrow would bring new challenges, new dangers, but for now, they had survived. And in their world of shadows and prophecies, survival was its own kind of victory. Lightning split the sky as Amelia jerked awake, her scream caught in her throat. The nightmare of flames and terrified voices still burned behind her eyes. Her heart hammered against her ribs as she tried to orient herself in the darkness. You're safe. Luca's voice came from beside her bed, making her start. He sat in the armchair, his silhouette outlined by the storm-lit windows. I heard you crying out. Amelia pushed damp hair from her face. How long have you been here? A few hours. Sleep wasn't coming after the warehouse. His voice was rough with exhaustion. The visions are getting stronger, aren't they? She nodded, drawing her knees to her chest. Fire this time! So much screaming! Luca leaned forward, his elbows on his knees. In the dim light, his usual mask of control had slipped, revealing something raw beneath. I've faced death more times than I can count, but the thought of losing you... He paused, choosing his words carefully. You're the only one who understands these visions, the only one who sees what I see. Losing that terrifies me more than dying. The confession hung between them, heavy with implications neither was ready to face. Thunder rolled outside as morning light began seeping through the clouds. Later, over coffee and pastries, Amelia watched Luca move around his kitchen with surprising domesticity. The storm had passed, leaving everything feeling washed clean. "I need to tell you something," she said, wrapping her hands around her mug. "About my past." Luca settled across from her, his attention focused solely on her words. "I was a school counselor," she began, her voice tight. "There was this boy, Marcus, 12 years old. He kept coming to me, showing signs of abuse at home. I filed reports, followed protocol, but the system, it moved too slowly." Tears pricked at her eyes. "One day, he didn't come to school. They found him that night. I was too late." "Amelia." Luca's voice was unexpectedly gentle. He reached across the table, his calloused hand covering hers. "You tried to protect him." "Like you're trying to protect me." She met his gaze. "Sometimes our best isn't enough." "Sometimes it has to be," he replied quietly. The day passed in a haze of security briefings and tense phone calls. By nightfall, another storm had rolled in, pelting the penthouse windows with rain. Amelia stood watching the city lights blur through the downpour when it hit them both, the vision slamming into their minds with crushing force. Matteo, alive. His face bore savage burn scars, but his eyes were Luca's eyes, filled with cold fury as he pressed a knife to Amelia's throat. The vision was so vivid she could feel the blade's edge. When reality snapped back, Amelia found herself stumbling. Luca caught her, his arms strong and steady around her waist. The contact sent electricity through them both. "You saw him," she whispered, looking up at him. "Yes." His voice was hoarse. Their faces were inches apart, bodies pressed together from catching her fall. The tension that had been building between them for days finally cracked. Amelia wasn't sure who moved first, maybe they both did. But suddenly they were kissing. His lips were surprisingly soft against hers, contrasting with the desperate grip of his hands on her waist. Amelia wound her fingers into his hair, drawing him closer. Luca kissed like a man starving, like he was trying to memorize the taste of her. The storm raged outside, matching the intensity of their embrace. When they finally broke apart, both were breathing hard. Shock flickered across Luca's face, not at the kiss itself, but at the depth of emotion it had revealed. Neither spoke as they settled onto the couch, the storm still drumming against the windows. Amelia felt drained, emotionally and physically. Without discussion, they stayed close to each other, drawing comfort from the proximity. As exhaustion pulled at them, Amelia's head drooped onto Luca's shoulder. He shifted to accommodate her, one arm draped protectively around her. The last thing she registered before sleep claimed her was the steady rhythm of his heartbeat and the distant rumble of thunder. They slept as the storm raged on, two people bound by visions and fate, finding a moment of peace in each other's presence. Outside, lightning continued to split the sky, illuminating the sleeping city below. Luca stirred awake on the couch as dawn broke, carefully extracting himself from where Amelia still slept against him. Moving to his office, he dialed Angelo, his most trusted informant. "Find anything linking to Matteo's survival after the fire," he whispered urgently. "Bank records, properties, witnesses, anything." A soft gasp made him turn. Amelia stood in the doorway, her face a mix of concern and fear as she caught the end of his conversation. The mention of Matteo had clearly shaken her. Later that day, Luca brought her to an abandoned warehouse where his former accountant sat trembling. She watched as Luca systematically broke the man down, his voice never rising above a whisper as he extracted the truth about recent suspicious transfers. Back at the penthouse, while Luca was distracted, Amelia discovered a thick file on his desk. Her hands shook as she opened it. Surveillance photos of her from months ago. When confronted, Luca claimed he only investigated after the dreams began. "You're lying," she whispered, already packing a bag. Before he could stop her, she was gone. The city lights blurred as Amelia rushed down the street, her heart pounding against her ribs. She'd barely made it 10 steps from the Moretti building when a black van squealed to a stop beside her. Two masked figures lunged from the sliding door, grabbing her arms with bruising force. "The brother wants the seer alive," a gruff voice commanded as she struggled. The world spun, then faded to black. In his penthouse, Luca's hands trembled as he discovered her empty room. Raw panic clawed at his chest, an unfamiliar, terrifying sensation. He stormed through his headquarters, interrogating every lieutenant with ice-cold precision that made even hardened criminals flinch. "Find her," he snarled, "or none of you will see tomorrow." When reports came in of men wearing Matteo's childhood crest, everything clicked. The visions weren't warnings, they were bait. Emilia's eyes fluttered open to cold stone and stained glass windows. She was bound to a wooden chair in what appeared to be an abandoned cathedral. From the shadows, a scarred figure emerged, smiling. "Hello, little seer," Matteo whispered. Matteo circled Emilia, his scarred face twisting into a cruel smile. Each step echoed through the vast cathedral space. "My dear brother's obsession with you is touching," he taunted. "Those dreams you shared, my gift to him, to both of you." His fingers traced the old Moretti crest on his ring. "He stole everything from me, my birthright, my empire. Now you'll help me break him before I end his miserable life." Emilia steadied her breathing, drawing on years of counseling experience. While he gloated, she counted. 4 guards by the columns, 2 at the door. Every detail mattered if she wanted to survive. Emilia's muscles tensed as Matteo tried forcing her head up, demanding she witness Luca's execution. In one desperate move, she kicked upward, sending the guard's gun clattering across the stone floor. She dove behind a massive cathedral pillar, just as explosions rocked the entrance. Through smoke and gunfire, Luca burst in like an avenging angel, his face a mask of cold fury. His men spread out behind him as he cut through Matteo's guards with lethal efficiency. His eyes found Emilia's across the chaos. And for one heartbeat, time stood still. Matteo raised his gun with a snarl. "Die, little brother!" "Luca!" Emilia's scream pierced the air. Matteo's head turned just enough. That split second of distraction was all Luca needed. He lunged forward, taking the bullet meant for her. Despite blood spreading across his shirt, Luca tackled Matteo with inhuman strength. The brothers crashed to the floor in a brutal dance of fists and fury. When it ended, Matteo lay still, his eyes forever frozen in hatred. The moment Matteo died, something snapped in Emilia's mind, the dream connection severing like a cut thread. She ran to Luca as he slumped against a pew. "Don't you dare leave me," she begged, pressing her hands to his wound. Days later, Luca woke in pristine hospital sheets to find Emilia clutching his hand, refusing to let go. Weeks passed, and they stood together on his penthouse balcony, the city spread before them like a blanket of stars. "Fate brought you to me," Luca murmured, pulling her close. "But I choose you, every day, forever." Thank you for listening. Stories connect us in the most unexpected ways. If you felt that spark today, make sure you're subscribed. I share a new one daily, and the next might change your day.